Hey, everybody. Welcome into another PowerChurch and Empower webinar. My name is Thomas. You might have spoken to me as tech support before. Today, we're talking about some specific topics about keeping track of your membership properly. In particular, tracking personal statuses. We'll show you how to do that both in PowerChurch and in Empower. And this is going to be a lot like the Fixing Up Your Ministry webinar from a few weeks ago, but with much more of a focus on the central thing, the most important thing in membership, which is keeping track of everybody's personal statuses. Who is this person to the church? You know, are they a visitor? Are they a member? And how do you keep track of that? And then how do you run good reports on that, send emails to your people, know who to follow up with? That it's, when I say it's the most important thing in membership, I'm not kidding at all. It is. If you don't know who's a visitor and who's a member and who's deceased and who's a former member and who's a child of member, then you don't know anything. It's really important to have all that stuff straight so that at the very least you can pull contact sheets for people. And so first I want to talk about just in general how membership works. And this is the same in both PowerChurch and Empower, and I'm going to show you both here. I'm just going to flip a switch and then you'll be able to see my screen. All right, so here we are in PowerChurch here, and I'm just in the demo, so all these people are nice and fictional. The first thing to talk about is the structure of membership in general, and it's the most important thing to understand about it is there are households, and then there are the individual people within those households. Like we see here, the very first thing that comes up, I just went to membership, and then the first thing in membership is integrated data entry, a screen that shows you one household, one family at a time. And we see here just the first people who come up alphabetically are these folks, Brian and Linda Adams, and they're a nice, perfectly set up family here. We can go to the Family Members tab and we can see everyone who's a member of the family, which is Brian, Linda, and their 3 kids, one of whom is a member in their own right. And in general, you know, we can see all these people live together at 931 Sharon Lane. 3 of them are members, 2 of them are just kids. And I'm going to flip over and show you the same thing in Empower. So the equivalent thing you do, just starting from the main screen of Empower here, which is going to load in a second. Starting from the main screen of Empower, the same thing as integrated data entry in PowerChurch. You do go to membership up at the top and then households. And just like PowerChurch gives you a list on the right, Empower gives you a list on the left here of all the different individual households here. And just like in PowerChurch, our first example is a good one. Here we have the Greg and Valeria Adcock family, and we can see over here on the right side all their different family members. There's Greg and Valeria themselves, who are the adults, and then we've got the kids here, and we can see, you know, they're labeled as personal status child of member. And so this is like before you start doing anything in PowerChurch or Empower bookkeeping, the most important thing is just to get straight who's in what family. Really, really important to have all that stuff straight first before you get into anything deeper than that. Let's see. All right, so before we move on to people, which are the interesting thing that we're going to be talking about the most here, I want to spare a word for household status. So how this works is, and we're just in Empower here, so I'll show it to you here first. Right underneath the name of the household, it's their status right there, member in this case. And if we click on this, it gives us a set of options for what is the status of this whole household. And this is not super important. Usually what I recommend is if there's a member in the household, give the household status member so you know to send a newsletter there. And you'll see an equivalent thing over in PowerChurch. The same thing is called mailing category, which is just like a broad category for like, what do we send to this address? In general, because mostly it's people who are members of churches, not households. Most of the time, mailing category in PowerChurch and household status in Empower are not super important. Like you could just leave these all on none and nothing particularly bad would happen. But if if you're going through, if you got someone who's in charge of this, you might as well have someone, you know, set an appropriate mailing category if you're in PowerChurch or household status over in Empower. All right. But that, like I said, is not the interesting bit. The interesting bit is personal status. So everybody's got one. Like I said before, it's the who is this person to the church? It is, you know, are they a visitor? Are they a regular attender? It is the way you know who you should be reaching out to. Does your church follow up with visitors and guests? Does your church, put out a call sheet or a directory of members? This is how you get the right people on those lists. When I'm working in PowerChurch, I always start on the family screen. I'm just going to start again here. Go to membership and then integrated data entry. If you don't have this little sidebar out, you can click this little button that goes in and out. And you bring up whatever family you're interested in. And just right away, you can see their address if that needs updating. But what we're here for is the Family Members tab, where we can see the information about each individual person here. I'm just going to bring up Robert here. If you double click on a person, it pops open their personal profile, which has a bunch of stuff on there, their birth date and whatnot, their marital status. The thing we're most interested in always is this guy personal status. Say Robert Balu had stopped coming to the church, we would just change his personal status to be inactive member, hit save, and if we ever run a list of inactive members, he'll show up as one of them. Let's see, that's also how you handle it when, say, little Bobby Balu is now an actual grown-up, which happens now and again. You would want to go in and, you double-click on them, and they're no longer child a member. They're, member under 18. They've signed up themselves. And when they do really grow up, you'll switch them over to be just member. Now, these particular personal statuses, these are taken from the demo. You're not married to these. If your church has different categories of member you want to track, different categories of visitor you want to track, all that stuff, you can control what's in here. Like if you had, if you wanted to add one that was, a sustaining member or something, that they've met some other criterion, you could set up a new category that it's not in every Power Church, it's just in yours. Now you have sustaining members. All right, so that's how you handle personal status in PowerChurch. You bring them up in integrated data entry, go to the family, double click on a person, and you can just doctor up their personal status right there. And it's really similar in Empower. We can actually do it kind of all in one place even. So if you've got up a family here, our friends, the Adcocks, like we looked at earlier, that same screen where I went to change their family status, I can click the little pencil button there, and I can just change the personal status of every individual person right from here. Caitlin Adcock is now a member in their own right, bam. Valeria stopped coming to church, she's now inactive, and I can just do all that stuff all at once. And it updates it over here on the right under household members, we can see. So we might need to refresh to make that go. But we can see the new statuses as implemented there. He says confidently, gesturing and thinks something that didn't actually change. Let me try that again. Change her to be inactive, hit save. There it is. Yep, personal status inactive. Didn't even need to refresh, just took a second to update. All right, and so that's how that's done. The way you get to it, again, starting from scratch, you go to membership at the top and then households. Bring up any household and you can change their status. It's the second thing right here where it says member, right underneath where it's got their name real big. Their status is right here, and you can change the status of the whole household and the status of each individual person right from there. All right, and so that is most of the actual work involved here is just going through those screens, going into each family, making sure everyone's got an appropriate personal status. And my advice is generally you don't want to leave this for a great big project. You don't want to do every 6 months, update everyone's status. Update statuses as you hear about it. New person comes into the church, put them right in, make them a visitor. New person signs up on the membership rolls, right then mark them as a member. That if you're relying on remembering to do this stuff later, PowerChurch and Empower wind up way less useful just because they don't have the most current information in them. And so let's see. All right, so say you've done this. Say you've gone through and you've got all of these different people, and they've all got their different correct personal statuses, which is great. What do we do with that afterwards? And the answer is PowerChurch does a bunch of stuff with lists of people. That the main thing is running reports. And I'm going to flip back over to PowerChurch here. I'm going to show you a good, useful report for getting a list of people based on their personal status. And then I'm going to pop back over to Empower, show you the same thing. All right, so You go to membership at the top and then membership reports. You get this great big screen with all the different tabs here for the different, sections of membership you can run reports on. The one I recommend the most often, the one that is just a good contact information report, is this one here. It's called Selected Names, Addresses, and Phones. So again, I got here membership and then membership reports, and then in personal profiles, it's this guy here, Selected Names, Addresses, and Phones. All right, so when you run this, it comes up with a great big selection screen where you can filter this down to show any list of people you're interested in. Narrow it down by birthday, by age, by gender. But most of the time you don't want to. Most of the time you're going to want to narrow it down by personal status to get a list of just members or a list of just visitors. And so that's just this first thing up here in the top left where it has personal status all. You click on where it says all, and you can tell it, you get this checklist here. And so I'm going to tell it, I want just visitors. I want a list of just my visitors. So I hit OK, hit OK again. It asks me what contact information I want. I want it all. I want to see everything I know about these visitors. And it pops up. There's really only the one of them, the Anthony Baxter, who I just marked as a visitor. But if you've been going through, if you get contact information out of everybody who comes in, you can put them in as a visitor, send out a postcard to them, call them, do ministry outreach. So that's selected names, addresses, and phones. You can run it also, if we do the same thing, but run it for just member, we get a much bigger list of all of our people who we've marked as members. Otherwise, it's the same report. This one called Selected Names, Addresses, and Phones is just a good generic contact information report. And the most common thing you do with it is get a list of all the people with one particular personal status. This right here is a list of members. And so I'll show that again. That's so we went to membership and then membership reports. And then select this one in the list of personal profiles reports. You got to go to the second tab here, selected names, addresses, and phones. And when you run it, narrow it down to just a particular personal status you're interested in. And you can do more than one, members and members under 18. You can do the whole thing. And you get a list of whatever pieces of contact information you've got for those people that have that status that you've gone through and put in. And there is an equivalent report over here in Empower. So if you go up to membership at the top and then reports, this is all really similar, membership and then reports. The interesting one here is just called very straightforwardly contact information. It's underneath people, it's called contact information. And the way you make this one show just people of a particular personal status is with this add filter button. So like within PowerChurch, you click it, there's a ton of different options here. The first one is the one we care about because it's the most common thing. Person status is visitor. And so the way I got that is I went to membership at the top and then reports. I ran the one called contact information. Click add filter, and it's the first thing. Person status is or is not a selected code. So person status is member, we run the report. And it gives us the contact information for everybody who in Empower is marked with a personal status of member. Here's our old buddy, Greg Adcock. And that's, so this is just the most basic thing you can do. Like once you've got people in the system with a personal status, the one thing you can do right away is get a list of them, which is handy for all kinds of reasons. The other things you can do are everything else that PowerChurch and Empower do. I'm going to flip back over to PowerChurch and show you two more things that you can do with personal status once you've got it all set up. One of these that anyone can do if you've got a printer is you can generate mailing labels. If you go to membership and then personal profiles and then print mailing labels, you get the same great big selection screen where you can tell it just visitors or whatever it is you want. And then instead of giving you a report at the end, it asks you, well, how do you want, what kind of labels do you want? We have the 3 most common Avery labels out there, and you can just generate mailing labels suitable for sending right to the printer. In this case, I just did visitors. In our PowerChurch here, we only have one visitor right now. It's Mr. Anthony Baxter. But you could do whole sheets of these. If you've got the standard peel and stick mailing labels, you can very easily, if you're sending a postcard to everyone who visited in the last 6 months, you can go to membership, personal profiles, and print mailing labels, and just narrow it down. Just boom, visitor, and it'll do that. You can also, for the newsletter, this is the handy way to do that. You would send, if you're sending the newsletter out to everyone who is a member, you'd print mailing labels, narrowing it down to personal status, just member, like this. And otherwise, like this selection screen, you're going to see this a lot. This is the who do we include screen. 90% of the time, it's just personal status you care about. But you can do other fancy stuff. Like if you wanted to, you could do, everyone with a birthday in March like this. You can, do 3/1 through 3/31 and have it be, a birthday list instead. The main thing you want to do 90% of the time, even if you're just running a birthday list, is you want to filter it down to personal status so that you don't accidentally include people who aren't members of the church in your list. All right. I said I was going to show 2 things. The second thing is emailing. All right, so both in PowerChurch and Empower, this takes a little setup to do first. You've got to have your program set up to send email. Usually that's 5-10 minutes, like not a hard one. Give us a call at tech support. We'll help you get your email set up. Once it is set up, you can do the same thing with membership, personal profiles, and then you do send email message to a group. We're in the demo here. So I can't, but it takes you up to that big same selection screen. I'm just going to pop up on a live PowerChurch that's not limited in that way. So same thing ways we print mailing labels or run a report. We go to membership and then personal profiles and then send email message to a group. And so that takes us again to this great same very familiar selection screen, but this time the personal statuses that we select here, we go personal status all. We want to do just members. This will start us into the process of sending an email to all of our members. And again, if you've never sent an email from PowerChurch before, call us first. We'll help you get your own email set up with it. But this is for folks who do send email through PowerChurch. It notices if you're trying to email people who don't have email addresses, and then you can just put in the subject and body here. This is good and straightforward, and it's the same thing. Like the 2 most obvious use cases here are: do you want to send an email like a newsletter type thing to all of your members, or do you want to send like a visitor follow-up thing to the people you have currently marked as visitors? But also, same thing. You can any subset of people. If you're tracking something about them in PowerChurch, you can send an email to them or print a report based on that thing that you're tracking. If you wanted to send it to just married adults or any other thing you're tracking. All right. And now the same thing back over in Empower. Boom. Okay. So we've got our people set up with our right statuses, and now we've shown you how to run reports, and now we're going to do the other 2 things. So we go to membership here, and then reports. I think mailing labels is a report. Yes. And so I can just, over in the reports, this is a great big list. I always just search for it. I just search for the word mailing. We want person mailing labels. And in Empower, this is not its own separate thing. It's just in the list of reports. Mailing labels are reports in Empower. And here you'd filter down to a particular personal status. You click this add filter button, and you narrow it down to one particular personal status, and then hit run report, and it gives you mailing labels suitable for printing out onto peel and stick mailing labels. This is customizable as well. That you can do the different layouts, but this is the main thing here. And then for sending email. All right, so this one is a little bit hidden in Empower. So you bring up membership and then people works fine. And it's under this more option. If you just want to send an email like you would in PowerChurch, you go to under this more, you go to mass email. And it takes us to this screen which is again the same as Empower uses for reports. This is how you filter stuff down. You click add filter, and it's always the first thing. Person status is member. And then it'll think on that for a second here and show you a list of all of your members that it will then go into the process of sending email to. And if we keep going here, we get to the subject and body of the email. And then when you go past this, it'll actually send it out to the folks. But all of this stuff keys off of the one central thing, which is personal status. You can see it if you're in membership and then people, it's right underneath their name. And it's same thing in membership and households, that you can get to status right away, make sure that everyone's got an appropriate status. All right. So let's see what else we're talking about today. All right, so things that can go wrong with this. All right, so one common thing that goes wrong here is someone goes to the trouble of putting this all in and then never touches it again. That there's a story my boss tells, like, yeah, he wanted to reach out to the kids, the youth in the church. And he found out when he wanted to do that, that all of the people listed as the children of the church were actually adults who now had kids of their own, that no one had gone in and done this piece of updating. And it's worth doing. So I'm just going to find someone here who's got kids and update them. Let's take a look at the Ball family here. These folks are all nice and fictional, so we're not exposing anyone's real personal information. All right, so over here, we bring up in Empower, we go to membership and then households. And we go to the Ball family, and we can see here all the information about them, including the different individual people. And we can just update all the statuses right from one place. Hit the little thing next to member near the top, and we are going to note that Bailey Ball is now not a child of member, but actually just a member. And we hit save, and now they'll start showing up in lists of members. And even if they later move to a new address or whatever, personal status will be member until you change it again. Let's see. There's one other thing, actually. So one thing I was going to talk about, didn't get to. Let's talk about how you customize that list, because lots of churches, you know, the built-in list is just generic member, visitor, but you control that both in PowerChurch and Empower. You have direct control over like what options are available in this list here. This is a very bare bones little list here. And in particular, it's missing a status that you need pretty much definitely, which is deceased, in order to be able to track people who've passed away. You control that here in Empower, and I'll show you in PowerChurch in just a second. You go to Utilities and then Options. And it's under the membership section here. Under household, there's household statuses. Under people, there's personal statuses. And you control those directly. You can add a new option right from here. You know, some people like to keep their clergy listed not just as members, but as personal status pastor. That's a common one. If you're, as you go on, you know, you'll need to start tracking deceased people who've passed away. You'll need a status code deceased, and so on. And you control this directly. One thing that's special in Empower is you also control what the default is. Like if you're adding a new person for the first time, what does their status get filled in if you don't pick anything? In this one, it's set to visitor. That's marked with a star as default code. Easily changeable if you need to. But the next thing is we flip back over to PowerChurch. And the equivalent thing is tucked away under a setup menu here. So you go to membership and then personal profiles, and setup. And it's this one, maintain custom codes. These are all over PowerChurch, actually. You'll see a maintain custom codes under the setup of pretty much everything. It's where you control the multiple choice options. We've got to maintain custom codes here. It shows us our list of personal statuses. And so we can add a couple more here, you know, pastor and deceased. And now these are options just, you know, if we go into to a person, those are now new options for their personal status. You know, it doesn't automatically set anyone to be that, but you can set now we have an option. We can decide this fellow is actually our pastor and hit save. Or we can set him, you know, an active member. We control this list, and we control who's got what option on the list. And so I just want to repeat that again. So in PowerChurch, that's this here: personal profiles, then setup and maintain custom codes. That's what that is in PowerChurch. And then over in Empower, it's utilities and then options. And then it's personal statuses. All right, let's see. Looking for stuff I haven't covered that's on the curriculum for today. We've done call sheets. Yeah. So the other thing is contribution statements. Oftentimes, if someone comes into the church and you know their name and they gave some time in the year, they're not necessarily someone you need to go to the trouble of printing out and sending a contribution statement to, especially, you can give it one if they ask, but a common practice is printing out a stack of statements for the members of the church who are going to be coming to church to be handed one of them. You can filter your contribution statements based on that. And so over in PowerChurch, the contribution statements, they're a report here. We're on all contribution statements. There's an option on the second screen here where we can filter it down by personal status. If we don't want statements for visitors know-how, we just uncheck them here and they don't show up. This is the contribution statements report. And actually, most of these other contribution reports can be filtered in that same way. I want to call out selected contributors as being a particularly useful one here. That if you wanted a list of just your visitors who have given, you could do that. Have this be just for visitors, and it'll only show you the people who are marked visitor who gave this year, which I suspect is nobody in here, yeah. But once you have set personal statuses, almost anything in PowerChurch can be filtered based on that to show you just your visitors or just your members, whether it's their donations or their phone numbers or whatever it is. And it's the same thing in Empower. If we go to contributions and then statements up here in Empower, and we go through the process of adding a batch of statements, this is all stuff tech support can help you with in full detail here. There's a step in here where you can filter it down. I believe it's not the first or second step. Here we are, second step, for donors with personal status. And then you can narrow it down to, boom, to just members if you wanted. Ding, ding, ding. And so these settings, once you get out of membership itself, these settings, sometimes you have to look for them. Like when you're running statements in both PowerChurch and Empower, it's on the second step after you start the statement. In most places, it's front and center. But almost everywhere in the program, you can narrow things down by personal status. And that is why it's so important to have that in there and have that be proper. And I want to talk about something that frequently goes wrong in membership as well. This is something you'll see more often in PowerChurch than Empower, but especially if you had all your data migrated up from PowerChurch, you might just have this particular problem. And if you were on the previous membership conference call, you've seen this before. We've got the two-headed profile. So the point of doing this is, I'm out of my demo here. Where did I put my demo? The point of all of this is that one person has one personal status. That's guess I closed out of my demo where I'd prepped that. I'm just going to real quick redo this. And so a common thing you have is, say you've got a person and someone just carelessly, when they're adding a person, instead of putting in one person, they have a profile that looks like this. Anthony is married to Tara, and we have this one profile called Anthony and Tara Baxter. This is bad because it only has one personal status, and these are two individual people. And so if you have this in here, this is always a problem. This list of people should have one name in it per line. And so what we do here is we just decide this first one, this profile, this is going to be Anthony. We decide, boom, he's Anthony. And then we can click Add New Profile down at the bottom here and add in a new one for Tara. That is really the goal that you have here is have there be, why is this flicking away from me when I click on it? We're going to just add a Tara profile and hit save. And boom, right away she's in there. This is what you want to see. You want to see individual people so that you can set their individual personal statuses. Boom. Tara's a member. And so if you're ever looking at this, I always recommend, if you're working in PowerChurch's membership, you always, always, always start by going to membership and then integrated data entry. I accidentally opened several of these. I'm very sorry. All right, you go to membership and then integrated data entry. And then take a look at the family members. You always want to see it like the Addams family are here, where it's got each individual person on their own line with their own personal status listed. That's the most important thing. And over in Empower, if we look at households, we see we've got one of those with this problem here. It's the Ryan and Kate Adkins family. We can see the same symptom over on the right side. Household members, this should list Ryan, and then it should list Kate. And yeah, and like the fellow just said in the chat, it's correct to have the household name be Ryan and Kate. That's right. But within the Ryan and Kate household, there has to be a Ryan and a Kate separately. And so this profile right here is a two-headed one. You see in the list, like all these other ones are individual people. This one's got two heads. And so we are going to, we can just change the name with this little pencil right up here next to the name. And we're just going to decide this guy's Ryan. We hit save. And we go back to the household. And there's an option here by household members, this little plus where you'd add her in. And we're just going to have her be Kate. And we're going to give her a personal status of member. Boom. And now this looks like it's supposed to. Instead of having Ryan and Kate over here as a single two-headed person, now we have separately Ryan and Kate, who are correctly members of the Ryan and Kate family. The families can be named, should be named, with the individual people in them. We see the same thing over here in PowerChurch. Like this is the Robert and Carol Balu family. What's important here is that within there, Robert is his own person, Carol is her own person, and so on. That is the fundamental of membership. If you don't have one person per person, you'll have a hard time doing most other things. All right, and I want to show you something that if you're just getting started, this is not super relevant to you, but if you are inheriting a system where people have done a lot of setup, you might have more personal statuses than you really need. Like you're in maintain custom codes, right? Say your church doesn't really care about whether people are under 18. They care about member or not. This member under 18 category, you've decided it is not useful to you anymore. We go in here into maintain custom codes. This is where I showed you before to go and customize this list. If we go in here and delete this, it asks us, are we sure? And if there have been any members of that, it asks us what to do with them. Like, gosh, I should have prepped this better earlier. All right, so I hit inactive member and hit delete. I have someone set up as a pastor. I want to make it do the thing. There we go. So if I delete a code that's actually in use, like I set up somebody as pastor a second ago, and I tried to delete pastor, it tells me, hey, somebody's got that. What do you want to do with all the people who have the status pastor? You're going to shunt them into member instead, or shunt them into, whatever other category you want. And that way you don't wind up with people without personal statuses. That if you don't like any of these, you can delete them. It'll ask you what to do with the people who used to have them. Easy enough. It is also the same place where you go to add them or renumber them. You can change this. Friend of congregation could just be changed to friend of church if you wanted to. You control these names. You can delete them freely and rearrange them. That all works fine. In PowerChurch, that's here in this maintain custom codes. The equivalent thing is over in Empower. Again, to customize this, you go to utilities and options. Scroll down, it's under personal statuses. Say I don't like this one I added for pastor, we just can delete it. And if anyone had it, it would ask us, hey, what do you want to do with all your previous pastors? And so don't be afraid. Like if you've inherited a system where there's 50 of these and you don't know what most of them mean, that means you should delete a bunch of them. And like pare it down to a usable list that really reflects all of the answers to the questions. Well, who is this person to the church? You generally need no more than a dozen. It'd be weird to have even that many. Let's see. All right. One special thing about Empower I want to call out as an important thing is the ability to archive people. That if say this family, the Adcock family, say they stopped coming to the church and we just don't want to see them on reports anymore, know how. We no longer care about them. We don't want to see them on reports, but we don't want to lose their history. We can just punch this button at the top to archive them. It'll ask if we're sure we want to archive them, and it mentions what it does here. Removes them from most reports. We hit next. When are we making them inactive? And then boom, we archive them. And then they just stop showing up. When they drop off this list unless we tell them to show up in particular. It's very thorough way to just get someone off of there without removing them entirely. There's an equivalent thing in PowerChurch as well. Down here, if you go to the first thing in membership, integrated data entry, and bring up a family, it's these checkboxes down in the bottom right. If you uncheck all of them, they just stop showing up mostly anywhere. This middle one is the most important. Include in membership module reports. If this box is not checked, they won't show on any membership reports, no matter what. And that's the equivalent of the archive that we do in Empower. Let's see. All right. And so, yeah, the most important thing is always keep this up to date with your best knowledge. That if someone's become inactive, go right in and mark them as inactive right then per whatever your church's criteria are for that. Keep that stuff up to date. So if someone's coming behind you and needs to know, well, who needs contacting or who might be showing up for this, that all this stuff is ready to use and good to go. Don't leave it for a big cleanup project afterwards. That it's important to have this be the live data that you can rely upon. Let's see. I think I've covered everything that we planned to cover directly, except for some of the questions. We had some that came in ahead of time and some that have been coming in. Let me flip over to that and take a look. We're in the Q&A section. It's loading. Gotcha. Okay, so we'll start with the most recent one because it's a good question from Ashley Haynes here. What do you do when people divorce and have been giving under one envelope number? So let's just find a good married couple example, and we're going to divorce them. Brian and Linda Adams will work fine here. All right, so step one is decide who is keeping the history. That usually it'll be one or the other that's going to get a statement for that year where they divorced, where they were donating at the beginning of it. Someone's going to get credit for it. In this case, let's say it's Brian. Brian's going to maintain he's going to keep the family history on this one. So Linda, we are going to double click on her here and just give her a different envelope number. We can just click this button and have it pick one for her. We backspace that out. Boom. That assigns 121. And this right here, this is common for married couples as well. I would say most married couples share an envelope number, but sometimes you'll talk to people who want separate statements for tax purposes. This alone is a step you'll be taking with married folks. It's just giving one of the spouses a different envelope number. This is also how you handle it if one of the kids in the family starts to donate. And they want their own statement at the end of the year, like Erica Adams here. We could give her own envelope number. Works fine. They're all still in the same family at this point. This is good so far. But say Linda's moving out, and this is how you handle divorces, and this is how you handle college-age kids moving out, which is to say it's something you'll be doing fairly often usually. That whenever you have people who were at the same address and are not, say Erica's moving out, we select her on the list here. And again, we're doing this from the same starting point we do everything. Membership, integrated data entry, family members tab. We select Erica and we say move profile. So if Erica's just moving out to college, 1, 2, 3 college, we just give her a new address. Boom, and there she is. Pow. I'm sure I want to move her. And now Erica Adams is here in her own family with her own address as the only member of that family. And Brian and Linda are here still with their 2 other kids. Say Linda's moving out. We move her into a new family at 123 Bake Street. And boom, now she's popped out into her own family as well. The thing that made that easy to do was we gave these people their own envelope numbers ahead of time. That was important there. Let's see. What else have we got? Smart person would have kept his papers more organized. All right, so so one of our questions we got ahead of time was about these labels and how to customize certain other labels in PowerChurch. And so if we look up Brian Adams here, you see all these dates, like the first 3 are labeled, or even the first 4. It's got married, birth, baptism, joined, confirmed, all that stuff. But then these other ones just say date 6, date 7, date 8. They're not for anything in particular. And you see the same thing in notes and codes. These are multiple choice options that work like personal status does, but they're all blank. They don't have a name and they don't have built-in options for them. You control that. And so that's the same stuff. It's under personal profiles and then setup. And this time you go here to personal profile setup. And you get a bunch of cool options here where you can customize the dates. Like so say date 6 is going to be, you want to start tracking people's first visit. Boom. I've just named date 6 as first visit, and that's going to be the label everywhere. If I bring up a person now, they now have a first visit date field instead of a bland date 6. Boom, right there. And so you can start tracking that and filter reports based on that and all that kind of fancy stuff. And so you have full control over that, and that's in personal profile setup. It's under personal profiles setup, and then this guy that just says personal profile setup. In the same menu as maintain custom codes here, and you have direct control over the names of the notes, the names of the codes, all that stuff. You can customize this quite well. Boom. All right. The other thing was you wanted another question was a way to search a household by phone number. All right. There's the way you do this in PowerChurch is through a report. And so if I go and run a report, we're going to run one that I showed y'all earlier, selected names, addresses, and phones. So I run this. If I wanted to, I could narrow it down by personal status. In this case, I really just want to see everybody. So I just leave it be and hit OK a couple of times. And we get selected names, addresses, phones for everybody's addresses and phones. That didn't work right. Pretend like you can't see my screen for a second. I'm going to change my default printer, and then this report is going to work. Sorry, we're set up on a conference room laptop that doesn't get used for actual stuff. So we're going to not let Windows manage my default printer. We're going to set this one as the default. We're going to close PowerChurch, open it back up again, and I'm going to show you how to find a family by phone number. We'll be there in just about 30 seconds. All right, so we cracked open PowerChurch here. And so we're going to start by running a comprehensive personal profiles contact information report. So we're going to run the report called selected names, addresses, and phones. That's this guy here, selected names, addresses, and phones off the list of personal profiles reports. And we hit OK. And we include all the contact information, and it comes right up for us here. All right, so say we happen to know a phone number. Like we want to know who has the phone number ending in 2224. Like we have that phone number written down somewhere, and I don't exactly understand the real life circumstance here, but you just search for it like it's a piece of text in the report, and it finds it right there. Boom, it's Robert Ballou's phone number. And then you can do an equivalent thing over in Empower as well. There's actually a better way to do it. If this list on the left here is searchable. And so we can do an advanced search. So we're over in membership and then households, and we're doing an advanced search. And we click add filter, and we get this great big thing here. But check this out. If we go if we click add filter, we're looking for contact information. Household's phone number contains, I don't actually know what phone numbers are in here, they're all fake, but if we search for everything that contains 555 and hit search, we find all of these people have phone numbers with 555 in them. I guess say it were 3482. We could do advanced search and search for just the ones containing 3482, and it would show us just a much shorter list of people. Oh, these folks, the Adlers, who have that phone number. And so if you have a mystery phone number you need to hunt down like that, that is how you do it. In Empower, you can do an advanced search over on the left and filter it down to household's phone number contains. And over in PowerChurch, you run that selected names, addresses, phones report and hit the little magnifying, not magnifying, the binoculars icon at the top here and search for it like a piece of text in the report. All right, so let's see. Looking at other questions, someone asks, is there a reason we would need to delete someone out of PowerChurch upon their death? I've been changing their status to deceased, but not deleting them. I like to have the history. Yes, that is, your attitude is the correct attitude. If someone dies, it's good to keep the records around, especially of their giving and attendance and so on, in case you need to issue a statement to their estate, or just in general keep track of like what was going on 2 years ago. That my advice is in Empower, do the archive thing, and in PowerChurch, update their status and just knock them off for reports if there's nobody left in the family. By far the best thing you can do for managing deceased people is mark them with personal status deceased and get in the habit of running reports that don't include that. Like whenever you run any report, filter it down to just members or just members and visitors, so that by default it doesn't include things like deceased and former member and so on. Let's see. And then let's see, in PowerChurch, is it possible to create reports based on individual personal statuses? The answer is yes. It's that thing we just showed you, which is selected names, addresses, phones. But the second part of that question, people who joined within a certain range of months, in order to do that, you've got to fill in when they joined. If you're not going to the trouble of tracking it, you can't pull it out later. So Brian Adams here, for example, if we go to his personal profile, he's got a joined date here, but it's blank. So we wouldn't be able to pull him up on that. But if we'd gone to the trouble of putting all this in, right? Say he joined beginning of this year, right? We could then run a report showing us just the people who joined this year. And it's the same report. Selected names, addresses, phones, and we would narrow it down to joined this year is one of our built-in options. Joined this year. And if we hit OK, we get the same. Oh, right. I made it so he doesn't show under reports. So now that we've set Brian Adams here, we've set Brian Adams to have a joined date. Now we can run a report that filters based on joined date, which is this one here. Selected names, addresses, phones, narrow it down to joined this year, and hit OK. And we get a list of probably just Brian Adams. Yes. Because we filtered based on the joined date, it shows us the joined date right here on the report as well, which is very handy. And so the answer to that is yes, you can track all of that stuff. The most useful report is in PowerChurch, selected names, addresses, phones, and in Empower, it's the one called contact information. That's here under membership and then reports. It's this one called contact information. And you can filter based on anything. Like this great big list here is the same thing as that great big selection screen in PowerChurch, where you're looking for the particular thing you care about in this case. And so you'd be looking for, in this case, let's see, background checks, a note, person's added date. Boom. So we do person was added this year. And you can filter this down even further. You could do people whose status is visitor who were added this year. You can stack these up here. So if you wanted people whose status is visitor who were added this year, this set of report options would do it for you, which is a good real life thing. And Empower in general remembers more stuff like that. PowerChurch doesn't really know when you changed things unless you put in a date as you did it. Whereas Empower knows things like when a person was added and can keep track of that quite nicely for you. All right, and that is all the stuff that's on curriculum, and as well as all of the questions that were asked about it. Does anyone have any other questions they want to drop in the Q&A while we've got a second? Because I do have one more question that came through earlier that is totally unrelated to the topic of this webinar, but that I'm qualified to answer. And that is there a way to have your accounting carry over fiscal years? The answer to that is, yeah, it does. And it's probably doing it already, even if you haven't noticed. That anything that appears on a balance sheet should remember year over year. A balance sheet for the end of December is the same as a balance sheet for the end of January. And so if you've got stuff like the person who mentioned this, they mentioned some of their designated funds that they track, they don't carry over year to year. The thing that you're missing is some account that shows on the balance sheet to hold that balance. That if you're just tracking inflow and outflow, it never shows on the balance sheet. It basically resets every year. But like we see here in the demo, if you've got like designated funds, like this church has a missions fund, like this $850, if it goes unspent, it just sticks around until next year. Nothing happens to it as the year turns over. There's a couple different ways to accomplish this. So I would encourage whoever asked that question to give us a call in particular, and we can help you figure it out. What you're looking for is some way of tracking donor restricted money that carries over year to year. There's a couple of ways to do it, and it's pretty straightforward. Just thought I'd answer that one last because it's the least membership related. But the things I wanted to emphasize here are the things we've gone over. The most important thing in membership is tracking people's personal statuses. Everyone's got one. Everyone should be in the system as an individual person with their own correct personal status. The place where you go to see that in PowerChurch is here, membership, and then integrated data entry in the family members tab. And the place where you go see it in Empower is you go to membership and then households. And it's just the second thing on any member where it's got this right here. And you can just change the whole family all at once. And I believe that to be it. I hope this has been useful, even if it was slightly disorganized. And again, I want to emphasize like personal status. If you get that right, everything else falls into place. You can send emails to your visitors, send postcards to your members, get a directory for just the people you care about. If you're doing one thing in membership, it should be tracking accurate personal statuses for everybody. All right. And I believe I don't see any more questions came in through the built-in Q&A thing, and so I think I'm going to wrap it up. If anyone has any questions about this, go ahead and call tech support. We can help, and put in questions through the question submission form when we announce the next one, that we get all of those and then we answer them on camera. Cheers. Have a good one.